And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the future games that are going to be happening today and tomorrow, and just my thoughts and opinions on those games, who I think is going to come out on top, and who I think is going to end up, who I think is going to end up winning. Now, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go ahead and get that. Actually, wait, no, it just stopped. Perfect. All right. So, anyways, the next games that are happening are going to be the Group C phases. All of the Group A games are done, and we have one more Group B game that needs to get finished. France, at the time of this video, France and Japan, they already played, and now all that's left is Brazil and Germany. So at least in the Group B phases, in the Group B stages, that's all that's left. So Brazil and Germany, obviously, as I mentioned before, the Brazilian team doesn't really have as much NBA talent as the German team. And because they don't have that same caliber of talent, I think that Germany's, just the fact that they have NBA players and players with NBA level experience, I think that's just going to be enough to beat this Brazil team that only has a couple of players and not really that many players that can go toe to toe with them. At least, from what I'd expect from players that don't have NBA experience. Obviously, it's a big world. So not everyone is going to get drafted to the NBA. Not everyone is going to get recognized by NBA scouts, and not everyone is going to be looking for players in Brazil or in any place for that matter for NBA talented players. And most of the scouting is going to be done in the United States because there's so much talent in the United States. But it's a big, big world out there. And it's there's so many players in previous history that could have been NBA caliber talent, but just, didn't get selected or just didn't want to partake in it. So it's there's so many players that aren't in the NBA, but they could arguably be better than some NBA talented players, right? So obviously, those are few and far in between, but they do exist. For example, there was a Sabonis. He was a player on the Portland Trailblazers, and for most of his career, he played in Russia, right? And because he was playing in Russia, which I believe was the Soviet Union at the time, and yeah, obviously, I'm sure you guys know the history. United States and USSR, they have fantastic history. I'm sure you guys know that. But it's he was not allowed to play in the NBA because of reasons. And he's one of those players that arguably could have been so talented in the NBA. And it's we never really got to see that for the prime of his years. We got to see that for just a little bit, but not for his prime years. And so players like that, like him, they could still exist now. They could have existed then, and they could exist in the future, and we would have no idea about it because of reasons. And reasons that they could be any kind of reason. I'm not going to get into those reasons, but so it is definitely possible that, and Brazil, they actually have this one athlete that has the most points in the history of basketball, or they had this athlete. He was from Brazil. So it's after LeBron reached Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's points and production scoring, well, not really his production scoring, but after LeBron reached his points, right, and surpassed Kareem in points, there was now another player left to surpass, and that was this, I forgot his name, but he was from Brazil, and I kid you not, he had so many more points, and look, it's Simone Biles. But yeah, he had so many more points than LeBron, and it was they're just trying to move the goalpost on him. But aside from that, it's there could be talent anywhere, and that's really all that I wanted to get at. But despite that, I don't think Germany's going to lose to the Brazilian team. I genuinely don't. But that's just me. But let me know in the comments what sport you guys are watching for the Olympics. There's apparently breakdancing. that's a sport in the Olympics. So it's kind of interesting. And obviously, Simone Biles, one of the more popular Olympic athletes in period, actually, now that I think about it. But so aside from this game that's happening today, the final game that's happening, there's also two games happening tomorrow, and those two games are both in the Group C standings. So you have Puerto Rico against Serbia and United States against South Sudan. It should also be noted that depending on how much Germany wins by, it doesn't matter. As long as they win, they're going to make it back to the top seed in their group. Now, if they lose, it depends on how much they lose by, because then Brazil might be able to overtake them in the point differential. So, it's like it's a double-edged sword. You got to be able to, you could win or you could lose, but it's like it depends on how much you lose by. But obviously, you'd want to win if you're Germany, just so you could secure that number one spot. So for the Group C stages, we have Puerto Rico and Serbia. They're going to be playing at 11:15, and United States going up against South Sudan yet again at 3 o'clock tomorrow. So obviously, Puerto Rico and Serbia, they're the lower end of the Group C stages. Right now they are the lower end of the Group C. And they're arguably some of the weakest teams in the Olympics right now. Like, if it wasn't for the United States being in this group, I wouldn't even consider this group as competitive. Because aside from, literally, the United States has more NBA talented players than the rest of these teams combined. And that's saying a lot, because a lot of the teams that I mentioned before, they have more NBA talent than ever before. So the fact that United States still outnumbers the NBA talent amongst all of these teams is staggering. So Serbia, they have the worst point differential amongst the two of those teams. So really, this game between Puerto Rico and Serbia, there's really nothing left. There's really nothing to lose, I should say, because it doesn't matter if they win, then they move up, but they still have a really, really bad point differential. Like, Serbia's point differential is minus 26. So if they were to win and be 1-1, but if they were to only win by just a little bit, that's still not going to be enough to go up against, South Sudan, who, if I'm assuming, I think they're going to lose against the United States. But similar to the exhibition game that they played, I don't think they're going to lose by that much. So because South Sudan is most likely not going to lose by that much, their point differential is barely going to change. They're still going to be positive in the point differential. Serbia and Puerto Rico have to win by double digits, at least 11 points or more, in order to get somewhere in the point differential. They would both have to win by, Puerto Rico would have to win by 15 plus points if they, at least 15 plus points, if they want to even move up in the standings and have a chance. And Serbia, they would have to win by almost 30 points in order to do something major in their standings. That's how much they would have to win by. Obviously, it's not determined by point. Is that Kelsey? My bad. I got distracted by someone who has a fantastic looking beard that looks like Jason Kelsey. But aside from that, yeah, the Serbian team and the Puerto Rican team, they have a very long way to go if they want to get back up there, in the point differential. Now, the United States, they got it easy. They won by 26 points in their last game, so their point differential is plus 26. So all they really have to worry about now is winning these games. As long as they can win all of the games, they will be fine. Now, they could afford to lose, but they could afford to lose by just a little bit, not that much. But again, they're most likely going to win. Now, South Sudan, they gave them difficulty in the last matchup, but in the last matchup, they did not have Kevin Durant. And I think Kevin Durant is really going to be a very big difference maker because, teams, they could arguably find a way to stop LeBron. They could find a way to stop LeBron, then they can't, by the way. They could, at some points, find a way to stop LeBron. They could stop a couple of other players, but when you have Kevin Durant, I think it's just way too much because you have to put arguably like your tallest and strongest player on LeBron. But if you do that, who's going to guard Kevin Durant? Like, that's really how it goes. And with how tall Kevin Durant is, he barely misses over anyone. Like, he's not going to miss a jump shot over... Like, he's not going to... Well, I'm not going to say he's not going to miss, but he's not going to get contested by a jump shot. That's what I should say. But that's essentially, like, how the standings are going to look if this happens. So, really, it's just the battle of who gets the 1 and the 2 spot, between South Sudan and the United States. And, again, the United States, they don't really have to worry about much because their point differential is just so much greater. Even if they lose this game and let's say and one of those other teams wins, they'll still be so far ahead of the point differential that it really wouldn't even matter, and they would still make the Olympic, like, the cutoff, because obviously the cutoff is the 3rd seed. If you're in the 3rd seed or below, you're not making it farther. But that's essentially, like, what's going to happen. Again, the real matchup for today is going to be, Germany and Brazil, to see if Germany can still maintain that number 1 spot and number 1 seed by getting this win, and to see if Brazil can actually claw their way into the standings by winning by a lot and winning the game. So it's like, got to try to do that, because if they end up winning by a lot of points, like by 20 plus points, then they'll most likely end up, actually no, even if they win by 20 plus points, they wouldn't even end up in the second seed of their group. So it's like, it's really tough, like, just keeping track of all of these things. But it's like, they would have to win by, I'd say, around 15 points. Actually, no, not even 15. They would have to win by at least 18 points in order to, like, affect the Group B standings. So if they brought their A game, that's great. But if they didn't, then it really wouldn't even affect the standings all that much. But that's besides the point. And, well, not really besides the point, but that's basically all that I have to talk about in this final segment. And that is it for the podcast for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. That is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.